Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Pristine's Reads. So today I'm going to be reviewing The Voice, the Revolution, and the Key by Jenny L. Cote. This is the first book in the Revolutionary trilogy, which is kind of like came after the biblical fiction part of the series, and now we're starting a series of books on the American Revolution. So this is the first in that mini-series. It's also part of the larger epic order, the 7 series. I know, kind of confusing, but it makes sense when you read it. Anyways, so let's get started. First up is the summary. Technically, the revolution hadn't actually started yet, but I mean, this is pre the signing of the Declaration of Independence. This was like basically when America was trying to figure out whether she actually wanted to revolt against Britain. Okay, I hope this becomes clear as we go along, because this is kind of... And so it follows this boy named Patrick Henry, one of the lesser-known founding fathers of America. You don't hear about him as much as you hear about, like, George Washington or Samuel Adams, John Hancock, etc. But Patrick was there, and he was one of the key founding fathers, and he was the one who lit the torch of liberty for his generation. And he was the one who sounded the call to arms, so to speak, for his countrymen, and he was the one who tried to get America to see that they needed freedom from their chains to Great Britain. And he was the one who proposed a Declaration of Independence and trying to get all his countrymen to unify, because some of them were like loyalists to the crown, and they wanted to stay under the umbrella of Great Britain, so to speak. But Patrick knew that was not his calling. He felt that he was called to have his countrymen unite together in the want of liberty. And yeah, so it's pretty cool. And actually, I never actually knew that much about Patrick Henry, because, okay, fun fact, guys, I was actually born in the US. I was born in California, and I live in Canada now. So I haven't learned, like, that much about American history, and this actually taught, like, a ton of history to me. I had no idea about, like, Patrick Henry before, guys. Like, I knew about, George Washington, Ben Franklin, John Adams, Samuel Adams, John Hancock, etc. But, like, I had never heard of Patrick Henry before. When I, like, read this book, I was like, who is this dude in the beginning? And then I was like, oh, actually, that's pretty cool. He played a really good role in the American Revolution. Anyways, yeah, so a fun little side story there. Anyways, so yeah, it was really awesome learning about the Revolution here. And so Patrick Henry's famous words that he was known for, and actually I've never even heard of this again, I'm like ashamed of myself, but his 7 words that he was most famous for were the words, give me liberty or give me death. Anybody heard that before? It might just be me, who's like super ignorant, doesn't know anything about American history. Anyways, yeah, okay, so that's kind of like all I can say without spoiling the rest of the book storyline, because like there's a lot more to spoil here, because this is like not just American history, it's also a whole nother. Anyways, so yeah, non-spoiler people, you can go to the timestamp in the description below, click on it, it'll take you back to the non-spoilery section, you know the drill. Anyways, so now moving on to the spoilery section. Where do I begin? Let's start at the beginning. So we have Patrick. He lives in Virginia, and we kind of got like a foreshadowing of him from The Roman the 12 and the King at the end of Handel. He was saying, like, I don't know how to tell you guys this because it wasn't like super big in that book, but anyways, a guy named David Henry, recognize the last name there, David Henry, he was a publisher at the Gentleman's Magazine in Scotland, or was it Ireland? Scotland or Ireland, somewhere around there. And he was the one who first kind of like got the word out about Handel's Messiah, so he was kind of just like there in the plot line. And then at the end we see him writing a letter to his cousin John Henry in Virginia. Guess who John Henry's son is? Patrick Henry. Yeah, if you guess that, you're really smart. Anyways, so he writes a letter to John Henry and they talk, and that's kind of just like a prelude to this book. Anyways, so we have Patrick Henry here. We meet him when he's like turning 7. Gillamon has assigned Liz and Max and Nigel then sometimes to live with Patrick. So they find Patrick and get him to like them, and his mom lets him keep them because it was his birthday and you had to just like use his birthday as like, oh, I want some pets, can I keep these pets? And his mom was like, sure, it's your birthday, you can keep these pets. Anyways, so yeah, that's basically how it went. So Max and Liz are now living at Patrick Henry's house, and the rest of the team is elsewhere. Kate is in France. That is important. She is living with the Marquis de Lafayette. Don't know if I pronounced that correctly. If you know who he is, then you probably know what's coming next. Kate is living with Lafayette in France, and Al gets the posh palace assignment again with King George in England. And yeah, so Al's just like soaking up the royal life there. Anyway, so yeah, so now you know where everybody is. Gillamon and Clary are just like doing stuff here and there. Anyway, so, and they also have another very special animal joining them. No guys, it's not another Nate or Noah. It's not another member of the Epic Order of the Seven. It's an eagle, a bald eagle to be specific, Cato. So basically the story behind him is that Gillamon takes Liz to the Tower of London with him. They use the ionosphere to travel there, and so Gillamon tells Liz that she can free Cato and take him back to America with, and take him back to Virginia with her, because he's going to play an important role in Patrick Henry's upbringing. So Liz is like, okay. So as she gets Cato, this is important, guys, pay attention, she sees this cat named Kakia, and this cat is like pitiful. It's like disheveled, it's mangy, it's like just pitiful. And so Liz feels sorry for this cat because, well, Liz is a cat, she sympathizes with all cat kind. And so she's like to Kakia, hey, I can help free you and get you out of here. Kakia is like, oh, yes, please. So, I don't know what that was, guys. So, Liz frees Kakia, and when Kakia asks Liz where she should go now that she's escaped from the Tower of London, Liz is like, well, you could go down to the harbor and take a ship and sail for America. You will be free there. Bad decision. So, Kakia escapes. Liz takes Cato, and she and Gillamon go through the ionosphere. If you're wondering what Gillamon was doing, he was in the form of a yeoman warder, and he was just like, distracting the guard at the animal tower while Liz was taking Cato and escaping with him. So, yeah, that's basically what they were doing. I've been to the Tower of London before, guys, actually. It's really cool. Anyways, so Liz escapes with Cato to Virginia, and since Cato was captured at a young age, he has no survival instincts whatsoever. He does not know how to fly, and he does not know how to catch his own food, so he is like completely helpless. So Liz tries to help Cato, and conveniently there happens to be a grown-up bald eagle living near Patrick's house, and Nigel asked the bald eagle if he could help. Not the bald eagle, what am I talking about? Nigel asked the bald eagle if he could help Cato learn how to fly. So the bald eagle does, Cato learns how to fly, and yeah. If you're wondering how Cato got his name, you know who Cato is, first of all. You don't, let me educate you. If you do, sorry, I just assumed that you wouldn't know who Cato is, because I didn't know who Cato is. Anyways, Cato is this guy who lived at the time of Julius Caesar. And remember when Caesar, like, takes over Cato's country, you know, Benny, Biddy, Bissy, that stuff. Cato was like, I don't want to live under this tyrant Caesar, so it's liberty or death for me, and since I'm not going to get liberty, I'm going to die. So basically he dies, which is tragic, but it shows how willing he was to have either freedom or death. Anyways, yeah, that's kind of important, but yeah, so that's how Cato got his name, because Liz, like, freed him, you know, because he would have died otherwise, because the guards would have fed him to the lions they keep at the tower. So Liz basically, so now Cato learns how to fly, he can catch his own food, he's all set. Patrick, meanwhile, is growing up. He's got his dad, which sympathizes with Patrick's uncle, who is an Anglican minister, and his mom, who is a dissenter, the people who didn't like the Church of England's teachings. And so Patrick's kind of like caught in the middle between them, because there's like some tension there between the two sides of the families, and Patrick eventually sides with his mother, and he goes against his uncle's Anglican teachings. Anyways, that's kind of happens later in the book. But yeah, so Patrick grows up, he starts this shop with his brother William, and they have a lot of people come in. Eventually he gets married. I'm kind of like fast forwarding now because a lot of stuff that happens. You see here, a lot of stuff that happens. So he gets married to this woman named Sarah Shelton, or Sally Shelton. And yeah, so they get married, they have a bunch of kids, but life isn't really going well for them, because Patrick is trying to be a tobacco farmer. That's what Virginians are kind of like known for. So he's trying to be a tobacco farmer, but like it's not going so well for him, because like there are pests, it's like super dry, no rain, there's a huge drought, and yeah, it's just miserable, and Patrick like can't grow anything to make any money and support his family. And then one day his house burns down. Guess how his house burns down? That little rat who destroyed Nigel's violin in the room of the Tomb of the King. He's back, guys, and he tipped over a lamp and set Patrick's house on fire. Good thing he wasn't killed, his wife wasn't killed, his kids weren't killed, his servants weren't killed, so nobody was killed. That's great. But now they have no place to live, because their house is destroyed, obviously, and the land is no good for farming anymore. So Patrick is now indebted to his father-in-law, and he now works at his father-in-law's tavern. So pay attention, guys, this is also important. All the stuff I'm saying is important. So Patrick's working at this tavern, and this tavern happens to be right next to Virginia's Hanover County House, or basically the place where they hold all their like hearings in court and stuff, the Hanover Court. So it's right next to Hanover Court. So after all the court cases, these guys, the lawyers, the people that deal with the court cases, basically, don't know what to call them. They all come to the tavern to like discuss the case afterwards. So Patrick learns a lot about law by just listening to them and talking with them. So like Patrick is still struggling to find a profession to make. Like his store failed, and now he's indebted to his father-in-law. He failed at farming, so he's like, what can I do? And Mr. Gillamon in human form shows up later. He's like, Patrick is a very like people person. He likes talking to people, he enjoys interacting with them, he knows how to make them happy, how to make them sad, etc., etc. And so he has like the gift of oratory, basically. So Gillamon is like, I can think of 3 professions that needed the gift of oratory. 1 is teacher, 2 is minister, and 3 is, wait for it, guys, lawyer. So Patrick is like, I don't think I have the ability to fill the pulpit or the professor's chair. And then his friend Thomas Jefferson is like, well, I suppose that leaves the law. Patrick is like, you know what? There's a good idea. I haven't thought about it before. But Patrick is like, I can't go to law school. I've got no money. I've got a life to take care of. I've got my kids to take care of. How am I going to do this? Gillamon is like, well, you could teach yourself. Patrick is like, how do I do that? Gillamon gives him a set of books, the set of books all lawyers need to read or should read for their training, so to speak. Patrick reads these books over the winter, and next spring he goes to try and get a law license. So he travels to see these guys named George Wythe, Peyton Randolph, John Randolph, and Nicholas Robert Carter. I think that's his name. And these guys are the guys he goes to if you want a law license. And his license needs 2 signatures. But there are 4 guys he has to go look at. So, Patrick not having much money is not very physically appealing. Like, he's wearing an old suit, just an unkempt wig, and he's like muddy from all the traveling that he did to get to go see these men. And so these guys are like, you want to be a lawyer, fat chance. But Patrick is not going to give up so easily. So he persuades 2 of the guys to sign a signature, to put their signatures on his license. And Patrick basically wins them over with his gift of debating and begs them to give him a chance. So the guys kind of like reluctantly signed the license. Only 2 of them signed though, but just enough so he can pass. So Patrick now has his license. Now comes to the most important case. So there's this thing going on called the Two-Penny Act. You should have heard about it if you know your American history. The Two-Penny Act. So Patrick is taking this case for another guy who lost his but needs to go again for the last ruling. And this guy is like fed up and he's just like, Patrick, take my case please. Patrick is like, okay. So he takes the case. Guess who is judging the case? Patrick's dad, who happens to be a judge. Guess who is attending the case? Patrick's uncle, which happens to be the Anglican minister who they're not so on good terms with, So Patrick's got a lot of pressure beating down his throat. This would like change everything for the entire country, because if his dad rules in favor of these parsons who want their money from these farmers, then everybody, like all these parsons all over the country, they'll be using Patrick's lost case to fuel their claims for their money they want. So basically the Two-Penny Act just like enabled them to get more money from the people who didn't make money in their parish or something like that. Don't know if so basically they're just caring about the money they're gonna get from Patrick's clients. So Patrick is like under a world of pressure. So he steps up to the podium and he can feel like the stares of all these like parsons looking at him. They're like, do not cross the king, do not cross the Church of England, do not cross us. And then his like dad is looking at him, and Patrick is just like sweating profusely, and his uncle is looking at him, and Patrick is like in nerve-wracking agony right now, and he's like and so, but anyways, he gives his case, he gives an amazing speech, and he convinces like the entire jury and his dad to vote in favor of his clients. And these parsons are like fuming, they are super mad, but the only money that the parson gets at the end is 1 penny. Compensation, alright. Anyways, so yeah, Patrick won his case, and that basically like made his name as a lawyer who stands up for the common people. So like all these people are like now flocking to him, they're hiring his services, and Patrick is just like now becoming this amazing lawyer. So yeah, pretty cool. He basically now has reached a turning point in his life. It does not stop there, however. Patrick is now the champion of the people. He's championing the people's rights, and with the newest stamp tax imposed by King Georgie over there in England, the people are crazy mad now. They're like madder than ever. So Patrick is like standing up for the people, and he decides that it's time to take the next big step, which is publicly declaring treason against the King of England and saying that he is not going to put up with his taxes anymore. And then he declares that America shall have liberty. And everybody is kind of like outraged that Patrick is declaring such a thing, because how dare he? Anyway, so long story short, I'm keeping this, this is a lot of stuff that I'm saying anyway, so anyways, long story short, Patrick is now like opening the First Continental Congress, and now his next job is to persuade these people to, and I see it's like persuading these congressmen to now declare that they are no longer just Virginians or New Yorkers or Pennsylvanians or New Englanders, but now they're Americans. But anyways, like, so, but they're interrupted by this, fake messenger saying that there's war in Boston, which is not true, by the way, and they're just like stirring up chaos and stuff. It's crazy. But anyways, so now Patrick is in the Second Virginia Convention, and he's about to do the unexpected and declare war on it. So yeah, anyways, but the peak of his speech, the 7 words, give me liberty or give me death, and you see on the front page here, that's him right there. He's giving his speech, and he's got in his hand a letter opener, an ivory letter opener. This is not just any letter opener, guys. It was made from the fragments of the statue of Nike. And this statue of Nike, you know, the winged goddess of liberty, was sitting on the statue of Plutarch, who happened to write a book about Cato. Remember that I told you about earlier? So, this ivory opener came from the statue of Nike, the goddess of liberty, on Plutarch's desk, wrote about Cato, and now it's come full circle. Patrick has his letter opener, and at the pinnacle of his speech, he's like, give me liberty, and he says, or give me death, and he pretends to plunge his letter opener into his heart. He doesn't actually, but, you know, he just pretends to. And yeah, there you go, that's where the letter opener came into play. But, twist, sorry that Patrick didn't know about. This letter opener was stolen by Kakia, the little cat I told you about earlier, who Liz freed. She was wreaking havoc. She had poisoned the letter opener so that if Patrick picked it up, he would have died because of the poison. And Cato, however, found the letter opener in time. But after fighting with Kakia, his claws, his talons were like bleeding. They had like cuts on them. So if he picked up the letter opener, he would die. And if he went to go wash it off, he would die. But if he didn't, Patrick would die. Guess what Cato did? He picked up the letter opener, he flew to the falls and washed it off. Liz and Nigel quickly grabbed it. They went and shoved it in Patrick Henry's cloak so he could use it in time for his speech. But sadly, Cato died. It was very sad. Anyways, yeah, Cato died, but Patrick got his fellow congressmen to finally unite in their desire for freedom, and this is where the book ends. They've declared war on the king. That was a really long summary, guys. Alright, moving on to the worldviews. Jenny Ellicott is the Christian author. Like I have said multiple times before, I found nothing theologically incorrect or chronologically incorrect. There's like just the Christian worldview represented here, but there's also like the dissenter side of it and then the Anglican side of it. So there was some like tension there. You know, Patrick sided with his mother on the dissenter side. Anyways, moving on to foul language, 0, zilch, none that I can remember. They'll mention when Patrick Henry was like just reading this letter, and then he was like, by God, I would give anything to be of the mind of this man, because this guy was like writing about liberty in America. Anyways, but Jenny Ellicott made it very clear that Patrick Henry was saying it as like a solemn oath kind of thing, not like cursing. Anyways, yeah, that's the remote thing. So, moving on to violence. There was some, you know, this is the American Revolution, there were some skirmishes, there was some detail about how George Washington started the French and Indian War. Yeah, there was some of that. there wasn't like a full-fledged war here. But there's definitely some like skirmishes and battles here and there. And again, nothing super gory or extremely bloody. Okay, moving on to romance. There was very little. I mean, there are definitely a couple of scenes detailing Patrick and Sally's relationship, how they basically like fell in love with each other and then got married, but there's nothing inappropriate, and the book was not like revolving solely around the two of them. And next up is drugs. Again, there was like Kakia poisoning. Sorry. There was a point when poison was used. And as for drugs, there was a point when like poison was used. And yeah, that's basically all I can tell you non-spoiler people without spoiling the stuff. Spoiler people, you know what I'm talking about. But anyways, yeah. So moving on to alcohol, there were some mentions of like drinking. Patrick worked in a tavern, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Now I'm going to my rating recommended age level. So I'm gonna rate this one a 4.5 stars. I know I really liked this. It was so close to 5. I learned a ton of history, and yeah, just like seriously guys, the amount of history packed here is amazing. Like Jenny Elcoat made the dates connect like in a way that I could understand, because like before I just like history to me was just like memorizing dates and stuff like that, who fought what on this year and so, but this was actually really great in terms of learning history. Again, though, my one thing with it was that I thought there were some points where it was a little too boring. Like don't get me wrong, it was really great having like all this action mixed in here, and I know that you can't just have like the entire story of the revolution done in like a story like scenes, because that would be just way too long. The book would be like this thick. But I mean, there were some points where it kind of got a bit boring and just kind of flagged a bit. But I mean, don't get me wrong, the action was still really good. For my recommended age level, I'm gonna say 10 to 11 plus. And again, that's because of like the length of this book and the amount of history and kind of like brain power it takes to like truly connect all the dots. I mean, I think it's great if you want to do it as a read aloud with younger children, because then it would be easier to help them understand it. Yeah, okay. That's pretty much it for my review, guys. Thank you so much for watching, sticking through my super long summary, and yeah, I'll have the review for the last book in this series so far up next week, and then the week after that I'll have a video on introducing my new channel branding. So excited for that, by the way, and thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you guys next time. Bye! Max looked at the company of men gathered there. They were some of the most important men attending the First Continental Congress. Then Max grew concerned to hear that the regular cook suddenly took ill. He growled and decided to make sure everything was secure. He followed the servant back to the kitchen, which was in a separate building behind the grand house. "Not that way!" the bossy cook screamed at the young girl assisting her. He grabbed the bowl and wooden spoon and beat it in the sugar at a feverish pitch. "You must beat it into the cream without mercy. Now do it right before I box your ears again." "Yes, Miss Charlotte," the servant girl replied fearfully. She took the bowl and spoon and did as she was told.
"Wow, this cook is so mean! Why did the girls get stuck with this cook? She's just so mean, and like, I'm all for perfection in food and stuff, but this cook is just like, she's more angry and loud than when my dad got really mad when I got into his supply of treats, you know?"
"And you, put the cakes and berries on the plates and set them on the tray," Charlotte ordered another girl. I'm going to deliver the desserts myself and need to change it into something more presentable." Max's eyes narrowed as he stared at the substitute cook, Miss Charlotte. She was wearing a great deal of perfume that left a heavy waft of fragrance in the air as she stomped around the kitchen, barking orders at the servants. But it was anything but pleasant. It smelled sickly sweet, as if it were meant to cover up a bad odor.
Dun dun dun! The plot thickens! The cook smells bad! Something fishy's going on here. I just know it.
When Charlotte stepped out the back door of the kitchen to change, all the servants murmured against her. "She is so mean. How did we get stuck with her?" one girl spat. And why would our usual cook send her?" another girl questioned. "I hope she's not here tomorrow. I don't think I can handle staying here another minute." "What happened to our usual cook anyway?" a third girl asked. "She seemed fine yesterday." "I don't know. Maybe it was something she ate," the first girl answered. "I don't care how good a cook this Charlotte is, or how much the guests like her meal. I hope she's gone tomorrow." "Something she ate?" Max growled. "I think this Charlotte ain't who she seems to be."
That means the original cook must have been poisoned or ate some poison. But what kind of a dumb cook would do that? But anyways, we have a bigger problem at hand. There's an evil cook and the regular good cook is sick. Oh no. What are we gonna do?
As Charlotte came back into the kitchen, she had tidied up her hair and slipped on a nicer dress. She inspected the silver serving tray to make sure that little cakes were topped with berries as she had ordered. When the servant girl, with the bowl of cream, came over to top the desserts, Charlotte snapped the bowl from her hands. "I'll do this. Needs to be done right. Go clean up the dishes," she grumbled. "All of you." The servant girls turned to take the dirty dishes out back to wash. When they were gone, Charlotte pulled a vial from her pocket. She smiled and poured it into the batter of cream. "Last but not least, my secret ingredient." She mixed in the liquid and poured the cream on top of the cakes. "Now to serve them their just desserts." She chuckled darkly and picked up the tray to leave the kitchen.
Oh no! The desserts are poisoned, and all the important people like Patrick Henry and George Washington are gonna eat the desserts, and then they're all gonna die, and what are we gonna do? Ah!
And that's it, Shona.
What? What? But I need to hear the rest of the story. Does everybody die? I need to know. I.
Well, Shona and others, if you want to know what happens next, go to my description. I have links on how you can find the book and read the rest of the story.
Oh, wait, show me those links immediately. I need to read the rest of the story. I will lose sleep over this.
Tell me where it is again. I need to read the rest of the story too. Otherwise, I ain't gonna lose sleep too.